It was James P. Cass that said, there are two kinds of games. One could be called finite, the other infinite. A finite game is played for the purpose of winning, an infinite game for the purpose of continuing the play. Now, I don't think he was particularly thinking about the marathon John Isner-Nicholas Mahut tennis match at Wimbledon when he said that. Although, having watched it live, I did think it was going to go on forever. In case you're not aware, the first round match in the 2010 Wimbledon Championship ended up being fought over 11 hours, with the final set concluding at 70 to 68 to John Isner. An absolutely bonkers match, but a perfect example of a finite game. It had fixed rules, a set number of players, and an end point and a clear winner. Conversely, some games are volatile and unpredictable with no distinguished winners or losers. Take, for example, politics and business disruptors. They play by their own rules. They are not games that can be won or lost, yet many people play them that way. I was one of them in the past. If we understand that different games have different rules, we can automatically give ourselves an advantage. But what happens if you are working with or for someone who doesn't have an infinite mindset? Well, that is a bloody good question, and by the end of this video, you will know, because you will have the 5 steps to adopting an infinite mindset and helping those around you get on board the infinite mindset train. Now with that, I'm going to stop messing around and just dive straight in. So a quick recap. A finite-minded leader plays to defeat others. Pure and simple. Whereas in contrast, a leader who adopts the infinite mindset plays to maintain a healthy position within a competitive field. If I were to simplify this even further, I would say an infinite-minded leader plays to stay in the game for as long as possible. For those of you new to the concepts, let me explain. Let's say you want to be healthy. You will likely have some finite goals. I want to lose X amount of weight by Y date. That makes sense. But here comes the kicker. The difference is those goals, i.e. losing weight, serve a higher purpose. That's the context. That's the infinite component. So you now know you have a finite goal, which is your weight loss, in an infinite game, which is life. One can learn or adjust to the other because they act as symbiotic partners. I would call this mindset, the established set of attitudes held by someone. If we take the rewards aspects of goals, finite is easier to understand. The reason? Well, they're immediate. We react to the thing in front of us. In the example I used a moment ago, this was the fat loss. So when we start to see fat being lost, we feel good. You might start to see the six-pack. The response is immediate. The dopamine rush is sweet as. The problem is, when we start looking at infinite goals, it is much harder. We have to consider the effects that we cannot imagine and see at that moment. These are intangible, longer time frames, unknowns. It is much more of an effort. One needs to be more visionary, for example. And this is when lines get blurred at work. Because having an infinite mindset conflicts with the here and now, the short-termism, the instant gratification that has affected modern-day living, if you will. But why is this? In his original writing, Jim Cass, who wrote about finite and infinite thinking, identified the types of game being played influences how one acts. For reference, I'll put a link in the description below to the Simon Sinek books and Jim Cass books. Definitely check them out. One of the things Cass says is that people with an excess amount of finite mindset look to exert control. They don't like surprises. This can be seen in business for sure. Have a think for a moment where you've experienced a leader or a boss who tries to control what you're doing. How did this go? Chances are they were focused on short-term time frames, tangible metrics, immediate focus. I would say this is a recipe for disaster. Why? Because business timeframes are getting shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. Thinking out loud, businesses focus on metrics which you can control. These could be a quarter or a year, 5 or even 10 years. The timescale is almost arbitrary. Short timeframes are favoured by finite-minded leaders. These leaders don't like surprises. They will do everything they can to try and mitigate surprise. So consider this for a moment. Why do you think athletes practice and train so much? It's not because they love it, although I'm sure some of them will. It's because they don't want to be surprised and they want to be prepared for every eventuality. That's what they're trying to do by practicing. The irony is these actions portray finite-minded thinking. The infinite-minded are the opposite. They embrace surprise and find opportunity in that surprise. So let's take an example we can all get behind, and that would be COVID. When it struck, it showed which type of people thinking had. You could immediately tell those who had a more finite-minded mindset and who had trained themselves to learn the infinite mindset. I mean, the reason is that the finite-minded panicked and said, oh my goodness, we're not prepared for this. What are we going to do? How are we going to cope? Or what's going to go on? They went into self-preservation mode. We must make more money. Otherwise, how are we going to survive? Conversely, the infinite-minded went, okay, how are we going to adapt? This isn't ideal, but it could be exciting. And this is in relation to their businesses. They are the ones who gave themselves the best possible chance to survive and even thrive. Why is an infinite mindset important? When leaders have a finite mindset, they are more likely to have unmotivated employees, less cooperation, and dishonest and unethical business practices. On the other hand, organizations with an infinite mindset tend to have vastly higher levels of trust, cooperation, and ergo innovation. This ultimately leads to company success, and we've been brought to see the world in terms of binary choices: success versus failure, winners versus losers. The default win-lose mode can sometimes work for the short term. However, as a strategy for how companies and organizations operate, it can have grave consequences over the longer term. How does mindset affect business? Well, if we take a leader who sees their business as part of an infinite game, they will make decisions based on long-term strategies that develop long-term strength. This is a good thing. Whereas someone who plays in a finite game will aim for short-term wins that might weaken their organization in the long run. So you may ask, is short-sightedness a part of finite thinking? The answer is for sure. Finite thinking is all around the short-sightedness of only caring about the quarter, only caring about the year, and I'll deal with next year when it happens. Whilst businesses that fail are run by leaders with finite mindsets, it can be that simple. If you don't believe me, look at the Blockbuster versus Netflix story. And don't ignore the fact that Netflix offered Blockbuster the chance to buy them twice. And they said no to both times, exhibiting a very finite mindset. Basically, businesses that succeed over many years are run by leaders with infinite mindsets. So how do you develop an infinite mindset? Leaning on the learnings from the world's authority on this subject, Simon Sinek, he identifies 5 differences in the attitudes and beliefs of finite and infinite mindsets. Firstly, it's about me versus it's about us. A finite-minded leader thinks only of herself and her own company, while an infinite-minded leader considers the impact her company will have on her employees, her community, the economy, and the outside world. Secondly, there's a reactive versus proactive. Finite-minded players react to disruptions, while infinite-minded players anticipate them and proactively prepare for them. Thirdly, there's short-term versus long-term goals. Finite-minded work to benefit their near-term bottom line, while the infinite-minded players work towards a longer-term view of success. Ironically, infinite-minded companies often end up with higher profits, even though they're not focused as fixedly on their bottom line, because their longer-term strategies pay off better over the long term. Fourthly, short-term threats versus long-term threats. So finite-minded leaders center their corporate strategies around responding to specific, definable threats posed by their rivals. Infinite-minded leaders focus on exploring opportunities or developing innovations that might strengthen their organizations as a whole. And fifthly, stability versus resilience. Finite-minded companies try to weather storms, whereas infinite-minded companies aim not just to weather storms, but to be made stronger by them. They are resilient rather than merely stable. So how do you lead with an infinite mindset? Well, once we can understand how an infinite game works, being able to use it to develop our people and lead businesses becomes ever more important. Again, leaning on the guru in this space, Simon Sinek, we can identify 5 guidelines to developing an infinite mindset and in turn build a strong and resilient company. Now, who doesn't want that? So number 1, advance a just cause. An infinite mindset begins with a just cause. This is really an ideal vision. It just means a big picture vision that provides a framework for your corporate strategies. So think purpose. It provides a context for all the decisions you'll make. It inspires people to work hard and make sacrifices because they believe in this cause. To help you, here are the 5 elements of a just cause. Number 1, it stands for something. not against something. It's optimistic and hopeful. Number 2, it's idealistic. It's inspiring, it's bold, and ultimately unachievable. Number 3, it's inclusive. It invites and inspires others to join you. Number 4, it's resilient. It can endure technological, cultural, political, and industry changes. Number 5, it's service orientated. It's aimed at the benefit of others. So question, can you define your company's just cause? Number 2 is about building trusting teams. A trusting team is a team made up of people who feel safe around each other. Safe expressing their feelings, asking for help, talking about their problems, and admitting to mistakes. Cynic believes that 99% of the time when employees don't meet performance standards, it's because leadership hasn't created a culture of trust a space. This is where someone can come to work and feel safe raising their hand and saying, I made a mistake, without the fear of being fired. So question, are you able to be vulnerable at work? Number 3 is about study your worthy rivals. Now, a worthy rival is a competitor who is better than you at certain things. In this case, they reveal to you ways that you can improve, enabling you to be better and survive in the infinite game. A worthy rival may make a better product, provide a better service, or command stronger customer loyalty than you do. Anything from which you can draw lessons, so trying to beat competitors is a waste of time. Leaders should admire rivals and look for ways they can improve themselves from them. The example is of Apple versus Microsoft. See this link here where I talk about it in this video. So the question, can you think of a worthy rival? Number 4 is about be ready to pivot on a fundamental level. An existential pivot is a purposeful, dramatic change that a person willingly makes in order to stay true to their just cause. It's a move that pushes him or her out of their comfort zone and in turn carries a risk of failure, but is necessary in order for them to continue to play in that infinite game. This means willingness to change strategic direction, even at the expense of a short-term loss. So question, are you really ready to pivot? Number 5 is about demonstrating the courage to lead. Leading courageously means working toward a better future, even if doing so puts your own career in jeopardy. When you lead courageously, you might need to take risks that others warn against. These are not just any risks, as finite-minded leaders take risks too, but specifically risks that help you follow your just cause. Being able to stand apart from the herd is essential. Change often causes friction, and infinite leadership must be able to see beyond the adversity to the benefits of change in the long term. So question, do you have the courage to lead by example? You can adopt an infinite mindset. The good news is that we can all adopt an infinite mindset. Thankfully, it's not a mythical thing only ever seen on Avengers movies. I do love Avengers movies. In doing so, we can shift how we experience relationships, parenting, business, and life. By becoming an infinite player with an infinite mindset, we end up playing in an infinite game. Whilst there are guidelines, of which I've identified 5 earlier in the video, there is no unfortunate 5-step program to becoming an infinite player. This is not an intensive course. It just doesn't work that way. Instead, as a takeaway, I would encourage you to do 2 things to begin your journey as an infinite player. Number 1, recognize the game. If you still don't recognize that what you're playing is an infinite game, you'll keep playing by the same wrong rules. So start by trying to notice what infinite games you're a part of. It seems simple, but becoming aware is hard work. Number 2 is practice the infinite mindset. Begin playing to grow instead of to win. Try cooperating instead of competing. Find something to believe in that's bigger than yourself, and commit to leaving a legacy. Unfortunately, there are no shortcuts to this. Practicing these mental shifts every day is the starting point, and a little often always wins. But it's the catching yourself when you're thinking with a finite mindset that makes the real difference. This doesn't mean we can't switch back to the finite mindset where we need to. Here's looking at you winning the 5-side football team. And that's it. I would love to hear what you think about your career and playing with an infinite game. Please do let me know in the comments below. But do you know which are the skills that I think will accelerate your career the most? Well, please do check out this video here and I'll tell you the 11 that you should really get to grips with, because I think they will be hugely helpful. But with that, have a great day, and I'll see you all in the next video. Cheers.